What up, guys? Welcome to a special episode of Santa Cruz Medicinals Radio. We have Larry Turner, who's running for mayor of San Diego.
Yes.
Super excited to have you here.
Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Austin reached out and was like, hey, we have to get this guy on the show. Just given everything that's going on, I think, in the world right now, people are getting more fascinated in politics. Young people especially, they're realizing how it does affect their day-to-day lives.
Good, yeah.
And so we wanted to talk to you about some issues that are going on, your thoughts on them, and we'll dive in.
All right.
Yeah, I originally saw you because you were a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps, and that initially I was like, oh, he's a good guy, like from the start, he's got...
I got me some cred.
Yes, amazing. So, yeah, I'd love to hear just what you did in the Marine Corps, just as a personal... Sure. Love to hear.
Yeah, I was intel most of the time. What'd you do?
I was a CH-53 crew chief.
All right, awesome.
So, yeah, I see the helicopters flying by all the time. I'm like, wow, that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, that's me.
Yeah,
so.
Flew in those many times. But I did it for 23 years, and I finished college. I wasn't even trying to be an officer. I called the 1-800-Marines. It was all before internet in the dark ages. And there was the billboards with the cool-looking guy up there in his uniform, and 1-800-Marines. And they go, hey, you got college? I said, yeah, I got a bachelor's degree, and you want to be an officer? And I was like, well, what's the difference? You get to be, I remember them telling me it was like the quarterback on the football team. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I dig that. That'll be fun. So, I did that, went to Quantico, became a lieutenant, platoon commander, kept moving up, and did that for 23 years, retired lieutenant colonel, and most of it was in the intel field, though.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then you became a police officer from there? Nice.
Yeah, so I'm fully retired and all that, and I just, it's kind of cool that you don't have to worry about the paycheck as much. It's nice to have another paycheck, but like it wasn't the thing that drove me to the kind of work I was going to do. So I was going to do things with homeless vets. That was my passion, and came back because, man, when you come back after 23 years, I came back all the time on vacation, but you're at the beach, you're at the restaurants, and you don't go into the rest of the parts of town you don't normally frequent. And when I finally came back, and I did, it was like, holy crap, how did this place get so devastated like this? And I always say, who the heck was running the show while I was off all over the world doing other things, for the country? Who was running our city? And really upset me. And I happen to have an FBI guy I used to work with, because I was in the intel field, so we had some federal law enforcement guys too. And he said, hey, you should become a cop for a little while to get used to the city again, kind of drive around all the neighborhoods and get you reacquainted. And it sounded kind of fun, and never wanted to do it for more than a couple of years. And I kept doing it. So I've been doing it about 8.5 years now.
Wow. Nice. So I want to dive right into it. So
sure.
What is going on in many of America's cities right now where we have just seen kind of like some of them basically just go to shit?
Yeah.
And I know this because, I grew up in the Bay Area. I would go to San Francisco all the time, just as a young kid. I've been going there my whole life. And during COVID, a little bit post-COVID, it went downhill. There's always been some dangerous areas in San Francisco, but it got to the point where, and anybody who knows this, and this happens in a lot of major cities, certain areas you just can't even park your car. It'll get smashed right away. That's happened to me multiple times. The homeless problem and the drug epidemic just grew. The crime in an area like San Francisco and Oakland grew immensely in the last couple of years. And it seems to be happening in many cities. The Bay Area isn't immune to this. The homeless problem in San Diego has grown. Crime has probably increased. What's going on? Like, how is this happening in your eyes? Like, why is this happening?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many factors, right? So, if I only talk about what I think is the biggest one, everyone say, yeah, you left out this and this. So, there's cost of living issues. There's things going on with the economy and whatnot. But I would just say the biggest one is the impact of the drugs and the mental health side of it too.
Yeah.
So, it's which came first, the chicken or the egg on it. And each person, as we were talking about before we started, my conversations and friendships with a lot of the homeless and talking to them about the chemical addictions they have, the mental health issues they have, those that, want to be friendly and we text, we get to know each other. I would just tell you that the concoctions that they build now in the laboratories, it's not Pfizer or Moderna. It's, somebody's garage or farm where they're making this stuff. It's not done to standards. So there's chemical issues there where they cause, permanent brain damage. And some of the newer meth, for example, like in 2 weeks, you're having permanent brain damage.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a whole book about that, about how the form of methamphetamine changed.
Yeah.
And now it's this, it's called P2P meth is the type of amphetamines out there. And it was a whole book about how people were that had treated addicts for decades and decades. They were starting to see people come in and, like you're saying, within 2 weeks,
Yeah.
they would sometimes not know who they were, where they were, just anything. And they were like, look, we've been seeing amphetamine addiction for a while. But the crazy story with amphetamine addiction in this book is that this bust in Mexico City, they go in, they bust this house. It's one of this famous photo of it's like a room filled with cash like this. And who they busted was actually a Chinese guy in Mexico. Yeah, and he had basically was the last importer of this stuff that was used to make the original meth, like the original like normal meth, still horrible. So that guy gets busted, that gets taken out. So they figure out new ways to make amphetamine, and it made it worse. It's just crazy.
Yeah, like new Coke and original Coke.
Yeah.
They got the new stuff. It just has been messing people up, and it's terrible. But you can see that. And then every now and then there's a bad batch that comes out that you'll know right away because there's naked people running around on the streets.
Yeah.
It's the jails can't even take them because of the medical worry that their heart will stop while they're in jail. But the fentanyl too. Fentanyl has been a totally different game out there. It's about 4 years ago when it hit the scene. So people who have these ideas of how to solve the drug crisis and the addiction issue out on the street, if it's an older than 4-year plan, it's throw it away.
It's a different game.
It's a totally different situation.
And you've actually been out there, which I really appreciate. I've done tons of interviews with homeless people in San Francisco, and so you get a different perspective of it because there's not one type of homeless person. I would say on the super like left leaning, I don't agree with when they're just like, oh, these people are just people who can't afford housing.
Yeah.
We just need to help them out because they just can't afford housing. And then you go out there and you talk to some of these people and you're like, this person's in a whole nother area. They are so addicted to fentanyl or amphetamines that it's not that simple. And then there's, another side of it, which there's like, oh, they're just all drug addicts. They don't deserve help. And watching your interviews, you definitely don't appear to be on either side of that. So what is your opinion? What can we do for the homeless? And it's a giant question, but what would you do?
You hit it on the head with everybody's so different, right? And it's just like all of us in this room, very unique, different people from different places. Same thing out there. So to have this sort of this monolithic approach that, well, the homeless are all like this or that. And that's what most politicians do. And they've got these cookie cutter approaches that, maybe some PhD somewhere who never met a homeless person, but writes about how to solve the problem. They've bought into that hook, line, and sinker with this is how you solve it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there are some organizations that make a lot of money off of this that don't. I mean, there's a lot of people who, they have a vested interest in keeping it going.
Yeah.
Because if you solve it, it's gone. Same thing with the health industry, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit too. I mean, if that problem's gone, well, then they can't sell you the medicine anymore. So I know that there are some out there that are fantastic. I mean, their heart's in the right place. They're making a lot of difference in people's lives. But then there's some out there that are just getting the checks from the taxpayers and they're making no difference at all. And I could tell you story after story of those guys too and make you mad. So kind of the reasons why I ended up, deciding to run for mayor. But, just getting back to breaking it down, the people, right? So I hate putting them in categories, but just to make it a little simpler to talk about in a short period of time is 3 big categories: is the have-nots, the can-nots, and the will-nots. And I know it sounds kind of simple, but the have-nots, it is mostly money with them. It's a very small group though. I will tell you the percentage of them out there would be maybe in the 5% realm, maybe 8. And they're off the street fast because most of them, it's just that money issue. They lost their job, divorces, whatever it might have been, they got them out here. Maybe there's a little chemical, a little bit of alcohol, lost their job, whatever. Little bit of anxiety or depression issues, but it's mostly the money thing. And if we can get them and get them off the street as fast as possible, it saves them so much time of being on the street, and it saves us a lot of money too. I mean, it's compassionate, but it really is so easy to do with just a little bit extra money, some life skills training, maybe help them get a better job, but continue to follow up with them. The bigger thing is to not let those people get homeless to begin with, right? So we need a super intense intel network out there of folks letting us know when somebody's a couple months from reaching that point, whether it's social workers or church people or little league coaches, whatever it is that they're getting behind on rent, car repossess, these kinds of things where we can go out there and attack the problem before they reach it. Because once they're on the street, for very long. They get institutionalized to the street, and they're attacked all the time. And you wouldn't believe the amount of violent crime that happens on the street that goes unreported. So all the politicians that tout that crime is going down on their watch,
it's not reported.
they're either clueless or they're lying to you. So
Ask anybody in San Francisco or Oakland or the Bay Area, when your car gets robbed, you don't go to the police.
Yeah.
They laugh and go, "Yeah, you're the 100th person today." Nobody reports it.
Yeah, so on the street, I see people bleeding all the time. There's stabbings, there's broken noses and teeth knocked out, rapes all the time, and that never gets reported. Those people, the longer they're out there, they maybe went out there for a financial reason, and now they've got these physical injuries. A lot of them turn to narcotics to stay awake at night, even to protect themselves from getting jumped at night, to stay warm in the cold. Also, all that trauma leads to PTSD and mental health issues. So the longer they're out there, it drives them into that middle column, which is the biggest one. That's 80-85% of the people that are on the street are in that cannot do anything for themselves at that point. So I want to get that first group off the street fast. But the cannots, they need the tough love, and I always view it as them being on the street is just a slow suicide, whether it's through the drugs or actual suicide. I've seen people take their own lives out there, and it's just not a place for you to be on the street. Yeah. And I know there's a whole lot of friends of mine who are homeless advocates. I consider myself a homeless advocate, but you can't allow them to stay on the street. If you're compassionate, compassion requires some action. Yeah. So just going out there and fighting for their legal rights to stay on the sidewalk and watching them die like that, we got a big disagreement if that's the position. Absolutely. So there are better things we can do, and we're the richest country in the world, the history of the world, richest state, really wealthy area here in San Diego. We can do a whole lot better than blowing our millions of dollars to some of the nonprofits who aren't doing very well, and build shelters with wraparound services to give these people a helping hand up. But they're going to have to take it. It's not a choice. Because when you're in that cannot, you can't make the right decision. You are so in the grips of addiction or mental health issues that you need us to make that decision for you. And there's legal precedent for that, And then just real quick, that last group, the will nots, that's that criminal element that does rape and human traffic and sell the fentanyl and, the death dealers out there. Once we get that majority of the homeless population off the street, we're never going to end it. I mean, I get that, but we'll end the crisis. Instead of being like 9,000 people, having it down to like 1,000 or 800. I'd like it to be zero. Yeah. But once it's, you take those customers away and those people, the prey away, those guys, we arrest them because they're hiding amongst them right now in tents. We'll get rid of all that, get them in jail where they belong, or they're going to leave San Diego. Yeah. So I'd rather them be in jail, but if they leave and go someplace where the people in that city don't care enough to put a real plan in place, like what we're going to do, then they get that. So that person.
The real big thing around that is the shelters. Yeah. Okay. What does that look like?
Dude, okay, one of the craziest things about some of the shelters, so when I tried to help that guy who I did the video with find a shelter, I really experienced like what is going on in California. Some of these shelters, you call them, and they look like, a beautiful nonprofit. You call them, and they go, yeah, so it's going to be $30,000. Wow. And you're like, what are we doing here? This doesn't help the actual people out here. Yeah. And then when you go to some of the shelters in San Francisco, they go, cool. So I literally took them to one, and they go, cool. So bed will be ready in about 2 weeks. Bye. And I went, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean by? They went, oh, we'll contact him. Oh, what? Contact him out. They're like, oh, he wrote down a number. I'm like, he doesn't have a phone. He wrote down some number of some other guy. It's like, and they're like, oh, we have a street team. We can try to go find him. I'm like, this is the system. So there needs to be like better design with some of these shelters, So yeah, what would the shelter look like? So, like, how would that work?
Yeah, there are really good people out there that, like I said, their heart's in the right place. They don't have the funding to really do it big. I've been out to some of the ones that work, and I'm friends with them, and I told them, hey, when we win, be ready to replicate. I want to see 10 of you. I want to see 20 of you. Because you're doing it so well, and you're doing it on the cheap, but you're doing it effectively, and you're really changing lives. So it's okay to plagiarize. It's okay to take a plan that works. We don't have to pretend like we invented one. There's a lot of really good plans out there that are working. So but the big thing is make beds. We got to have beds for the people. And not just legally, but just morally. I mean, you can't just say legally. There's that Boise case everybody knows about, right? You got to have a place better than where they're at. to offer them before you can enforce them not being on the street. So, we can have shelter beds. So the problem is we've been spending so much money on this housing first, and I'm not against that. It's, I'm an all of the above guy, on this, because there are people that the housing first will help. But there's a lot that it won't. I know a guy who right now he's at sleeping outside of a children's playground at Balboa Park. The guy has an apartment. He never goes there. He gives it out. He doesn't want to be there. He wants to smoke his drugs and be in the park and be outside. He uses it like an Airbnb. He lets prostitutes turn tricks there. People pay him for a good night's sleep to go there and take a shower, and that's his little moneymaker now. So I'm not saying that they're all that way, but we got to change the underlying problem in their life before they're in an apartment all by themselves.
For sure.
And getting back to how much will this cost? A whole lot less than we're spending now. We're buying Motel 6s to where that room is costing about $600,000 to $800,000. A Motel 6 room, no kitchen, right? Just a studio apartment, basically.
Yep.
Without a kitchenette even. That's a huge waste of money. You know, we could buy somebody a condo out in Santee and feed them the rest of their life for that kind of money. So we got better plans.
How did we get to this place where, again, like looking at the Bay Area, how could we avoid this happening in San Diego? And you would have a really interesting perspective on this, being a police officer who now is running for mayor. In many cities, we have the police that feel like they're unrepresented and they're not appreciated. And then it seems like they stop getting along with the mayor and the local government. And then you have just a disaster of a system where the police don't want to do their job, or they can't do their job. They don't have enough, resources behind them. Yeah. And what's happening in California, what we see a lot is people are saying, hey, people are doing crimes, but they're not getting actually prosecuted and arrested. So they're just right back out. And the police are turning to, the public and going, well, hey, this is what you voted for. We're arresting people. We're sending them in. And a DA says, oh, no, just send them back out. Like, how as a mayor can you make sure that doesn't happen? Yeah. I know San Diego's a bit better than that, than the Bay Area, but yeah.
Well, we're definitely following that same path. We are behind, San Francisco, LA, Portland, Seattle. So there's still a little bit more time to fix it in San Diego. I think we got a little bit of a later start than they did. We the type of politicians who have been running San Diego, that's really been dropped on us, maybe 10, 15 years ago, to where and they're running the show now. It's almost everybody on the city council, and it's the mayor. So they've been putting their foot down on the pedal, heading in that direction a lot faster. So, how do we change that? You hit a lot of things with the police department and the laws and the other elected officials. So, big thing I try to explain to people is that the mayor's just one of 4 of the elected positions that can help fight this. And that's, you mentioned the DA. The city attorney, though, is the one that prosecutes most of the misdemeanors that are related to what we're talking about today. So the DA really doesn't even, and we got a pretty good DA, she's good people, and she's doing an all right job. But the city attorney is one that's just throwing these cases out, not even prosecuting them. So that's very frustrating to the police officer, who now just does not even go forward with trying to handle that issue. Because if let me back up another second here, but there's already not enough cops on the street. Yeah. So for such a large city, I don't want to publicize how few officers there are, but it's alarming. You all would freak out, and I'll tell you off the air how many cops are probably working right now, and you would flip out. Now when you only got that many people out there, it's kind of like on hockey when you're in the penalty box, right? You just screwed your team over for a little while. You're out of it. You arrest somebody, it takes hours and hours and hours to process that person, and especially if they're have some chemicals on board. You want to make sure they're medically all right. You got to go medically cleared. It's a very long process, and now I've left my team out there with one less person in a large city, very dangerous areas if you're working downtown. And when I know that the city attorney's not even going to go forward with those charges, then why make that arrest? And then I've taken myself out of the picture. And now that I own that person and I'm taking them through this process, and I have to keep them safe and all that, they're my responsibility. If I hear on the radio, there's a shooting, there's a big fight, there's an overdose, I can't go to any of that. I have this person now so it makes the officer oftentimes say, I'm going to have to be smart about the crimes I'm going to enforce. There's this crime everywhere. Yeah. So what am I going to enforce? And I'm the open use of drugs out on the street, that's a misdemeanor that is not going to get prosecuted.
Yeah.
Now, if the person is in a bad state, they're walking in traffic, they're a danger to themselves because they're high, or they're starting to, amp up, swinging a stick around the public. Well, yeah, I got to go stop them from harming somebody, harming themselves. So I will take them somewhere, maybe to a detox facility that maybe is a little faster than jail. But boy, this is a really long answer. Sorry, but back to the cops. Good. So the number of cops is way under what it needs to be to handle these problems. But I would say that a couple things. San Diego, for example, we had an outside group come in and do a comparison of where we should be with how many officers we have for the amount of crime and the type of crime. And this is like 15, 16 years ago. And this was before fentanyl and ghost guns and the homeless crisis. And they were saying we need 2,400 cops. And we're down, I think, right below 1,800 right now, or right at 1,800. Wow. If you took the amount of crime and everything we have going on right now and the size of city we have, you could kind of compare us to Dallas, on numbers a little bit. I mean, they're like 3,500 officers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I would tell you that we don't need 3,500 officers. That's not the crisis right now. We need more cops. Most of this is handled by social workers, by mental health professionals. And I would also tell you that once we are able to implement a good plan like I want to do for the homeless crisis, and the officers aren't going from homeless-related call to homeless-related call to homeless-related call all day long, overdoses, a guy checking door handles in the area, a naked guy with a machete. These happen all day long. That's 85% of the calls the officers are going to.
Wow.
So we can get that off the board.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe we can do all right with 1,800 officers.
Yeah.
I think that we would re-examine it at that point. Maybe we need 2,000. I don't know. But I really want to increase our mental health professionals and have a behavioral health unit that's far more robust than what we have now, because police really shouldn't be going to a lot of these types of, or they should be there to cover that social worker, not there to enforce the law so much as to be with that person and keep them safe. Because we've seen also where the county has these behavioral health units that they don't go to very many calls because they're dangerous calls, and they don't have a cop or sheriff deputy to go with them. So, we've got a PERT team as a psychiatric emergency response team, but there are very few of them. We need to make that 20 times bigger, So there's some ways to redo this that I think, and it would rebuild the morale of the police. And I think having a former cop, on board, talking to them, and they all know me.
Yeah.
And me asking them to, hey, look, there's been definitely some morale issues for the last 4 years or so, and with this mayor and with the way some of the community has treated you. Reset button, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is it. You don't have a mayor who's going after you. You got one who's got your back, and this is what we're gonna do. And we got to improve training. We got to help the officers get better. There's some reforms in the police department I want to do. So
That's awesome.
long answer, man. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. I think what's happening in California is so many people are just getting more and more angry because we pay a good amount of taxes in California, which it is what it is. But when you start to realize that, okay, I can't walk around some areas of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And when I have a kid, there's no way I'm going to bring them to areas of LA or San Francisco. And then you go, okay, wait, I'm paying the same taxes here, maybe even more than I am in cities like San Diego or Orange County or these other cities that just seem to be running more efficiently and are safer.
Yeah.
So it's extremely frustrating, getting hit with a tax bill like I do every year, paying an immense amount, and then go, oh, wait, I'll be driving. And I'm like, I can't park my car here.
Yeah.
Because it got robbed last time and nothing happened. It's and I think a lot of Californians are experiencing this, and it's extremely frustrating. For a lot of people, they're just scrolling on social media. They might have had a hard month financially, and they see somebody walking out of a store with 70 iPhones, just walking out, and they're just like, "What?" It's just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, it makes sense.
Demand more from the government. You're paying them so much, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, I feel like no one has the cops back. So I love you restating that, because it's like, I wouldn't want to go out there and deal with homeless people. It's like not what I signed up for. It's probably what they signed up for, is helping the actual general population get healthier, get safer, instead of just focusing on this little problem that could mostly be, done away with. So I love hearing that.
Yeah, it can be done away with when I think you have a rational view like you do. Some of the programs that have been done in LA and the Bay Area, I think we've seen how disastrous they are.
Yeah.
When you just go and you enable. So, these people, they're drug addicts, let's get them like in San Francisco, Albert and I were filming, and a guy had stolen another guy's crack pipe, and the officer said to him, "You can go get a free crack pipe over there." Like, it's, and a lot of people are making the point in the comments that, there's clean needle programs, and that's a different debate. There's some real safety issues there, but people are making the debate in the comments of, well, the crack pipe thing, and they were looking more into it in San Francisco, like the crack pipe program really isn't that like protective, and it seems to be really enabling. How do you differentiate between having these programs that really enable people, I mean, give out money in some instances in some cities, versus actually help them be safe and lead to them getting off the streets? How do you differentiate with that?
Yeah. Well, I've looked at a lot of those different programs, and I've, I'm very clearly on the side of just getting them off the street. So yeah, I see some value in a lot of that stuff, right? I mean, the diseases that are spread by the needles, and I guess, there are less needles being used right now because more people are smoking the fentanyl, most of the opioid addicts out there. But even the clean pipes, and that sort of thing, passing out Narcan, there's value to a lot of it. I know a lot of lives have been saved out there. I've seen numerous people who, I'm picturing a lot of them right now in my head that I've been there and seen them die numerous times.
Yeah.
Fentanyl has saved their life so many times. And so, awesome. God bless the dude who invented that, right?
Yeah.
But the bigger thing is, let's get in there and treat the underlying problem, and let's get them off the street.
Yeah.
So that's my focus, is off the street and getting them into a program as soon as we can. And as I mentioned earlier about they're all individuals, and you got to get to know them. A really good friend of ours is a former homeless person and addict, and he works with me on some of our policies and come up with good plans. And John, he is a very tough love guy, too, and it's got to just be, you got to get off the street. We got to get you into a place where you can get some help. And are you going to fail out of that? Yeah, sure. There's no 3 strikes and you're out. It's 100 strikes, whatever it takes. You're going to keep taking you back to a place where you've got a good, safe bed and people who care about you and have that conversation with you when you first check in. Good 2.5, 3 hour conversation on check-in the first time. You don't have to do it every time because now we got to know you, right? But that social worker, that counselor who is able to look up all your medical records, all the things you've been diagnosed with, talk to you about your addiction issues. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Most people, every human kind of just wants to be heard, right? We got friends, we're chatting online, we're doing stuff on, we're doing this right now. The folks are going to put comments on there. Everybody wants to be heard. And these guys and gals want to be heard too. So the chance to have an actual person look them in the eye and talk to them, you'd be surprised how, forthcoming they are on the things that are going on in their life and the troubles they're facing and the addiction that they have. After the first 10 minutes of just the, get to know you and they realize you really care, man, they will open up, and we can get them into the right program at that point.
Yeah.
Because if we just, they're lying to us about the chemical addictions, they're lying to us about the mental health issues and stuff, then it's putting the wrong size shoe on the foot, and but we get that right program. So when I talk about these places, these shelters that we want to build, with 5,000 beds, that's not the end spot for them. Right. Now you are at this place the rest of your life. That's not it at all. That is the starting point. Yep. You're there until we can get you into a better program that just keeps working your way up to where, our success is when you are on your own and we're just checking in on you once in a while, make sure your life is still going right. Yeah. So that's the goal. Will everybody get there? No. No way. Right. Not with the brain damage we talked about with some of these new recipes. It's not, we're never going to get to everybody reaching that point, but we're going to keep trying.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's cheaper than what we're doing now.
Yeah. That would be
wild. And it's far more compassionate.
Yeah.
You're attacking the cause of it, not the symptom. Yeah. Like the clean needle thing, the clean crack pipe thing, sure, but that's just a symptom of what's going on. You're attacking the root cause, which is amazing. I'd love to hear your opinion on what's going on with the permitting, with these donation-based yoga teachers, or dog walking groups, or what have you in San Diego. That's become, I can see both sides of it really, but it is public land. It's yoga teachers mainly that a law was changed recently, or a code that was changed just to add them in. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? And is there a way that both sides can win from that?
You're never going to have everybody happy, right? Yeah. But the majority, and just doing the right thing, and not being tied to a big donor to help you make your decision and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think we can get something where most people are happy with the decision on it. But let me just tell you a little bit of background on this whole thing with the vending ordinance. So I had I'd been on the police department, and I had done pretty much everything I was wanting to do. I was on the SWAT team, and I was training the new officers, and okay, I told you earlier I was only gonna do it for a couple of years. So I was around the 5-year mark, and I was getting ready to move on and go do some stuff with homeless issues. And they asked me to be a community relations officer. And I was older than the normal new cop, and so I'd been around the world a little bit and knew how to deal with some bigger situations. So I thought, that'll be fun. I'll do that. And it was great. Got to know all these business organizations, homeowner association, neighborhood associations, planning groups, all that. But one of the other things was working with the elected officials and their staffs. And the very first thing that I got asked to look at was, hey, we're working on this vending ordinance, because it was all about those hot dog vendors downtown, right, or at the boardwalk. And they're not even from here. They're all either from TJ or they're from LA. They keep their stuff at a storage place downtown. They come down here. It saves them money driving them all down every time they pick them up, and with their workers. Nobody's from San Diego dealing with this. It's actually a human trafficking issue. I mean, it really is. They're making no money off of it. They're being they're indentured servants for either being brought across the border or whatever it might be. It's really a thing that needs to get investigated more, not just looking at the hot dog, and the impact on taxes and restaurants, and that's all they're looking at. So they came up with this plan, say, hey, look at it, and I saw these loopholes in there that were just ridiculous. Like, there was no way to enforce it. And from the police officer perspective, I said, hey, you guys need to fix these things. They never did. And I know, I learned why, and I kind of thought, there's New York and Chicago kind of politics. I thought, hey, this is San Diego. Yeah. It's not like, boy, has the last few years been a huge eye opener. It is just as bad. It's just that they don't hide it as well. Yeah. But on the hot dog vendor side, there were people who said, hey, vendors need to be out there to make ends meet. COVID, people lost their jobs. And they were talking about the grandma who's selling tamales at the park, or the people selling, blankets from Mexico out on the boardwalk. And that was who they wanted to protect. Nobody was talking about these cartels bringing hot dog vendors down here, right? Making people sick, dumping out their grease on the sidewalks, causing all kinds of problems I could tell you about. But that was the point of this whole thing, was these hot dog vendors. And for like a year or so, they touted, yay, look what we did. We made this ordinance, but it kept both sides happy. The side that didn't want it, the side that did, they let this side think, we did something, but it was worthless. These guys saw no enforcement of anything. So I went on for like another year and a half or so, and I just really opened my eyes to it. So I started digging more, and now I'm running for mayor. But back to this vending ordinance. So recently they tried to fix it again. They still left a lot of loopholes in it. The hot dog vendors are still out there. There's so many loopholes that the police really don't have a lot of tools. I know you'd think we just go out there and arrest them, but it's more of a civil issue. Not to get into the law on it, but the way that Sacramento passed the law on the vendors, and it ties the hands of the police on it. It's more of a code enforcement issue. But when they did this recent one, the hot dog vendors are still untouched out there. Right. Yeah. But then they started going after these folks. And I was a huge shock to me that is what they started doing. In the ordinance, it says in there, park rangers and code enforcement are the ones that are to do the enforcement. That's why you don't see police out there doing those tickets. Right. But that's why park rangers are the ones doing it. They were put in there. It was them and code enforcement were the only ones to do these tickets.
Why did they go after them? Was it just easier just to go after a group versus like an individual on the street, can't speak English type of deal?
Yeah. So I would just tell you, that there's a lot of it has to do with your compliance. Okay. So there are things we cannot detain you for. All right. I'll be honest with you. And a lot of it is just hoping the person will, comply with our recommendation of you should please follow this ordinance, that kind of a thing. Law-abiding people seem to stop and talk and provide their ID, and they're easier to enforce laws upon. So when you're seeing a bunch of just good people, good solid San Diegans, Americans out there, and a park ranger comes up, and they're not going to get me in trouble. They might argue with it. Hey, this is silly. Why aren't you stopping all these people over here camping on the beach or smoking fentanyl? Why aren't you stopping that hot dog vendor over there? You're kind of easier. You're an easier target out there, to be honest. And part of it is the demographics of the people maybe who live in that area who have complained. They know how to reach out to their city council member or to the mayor's office, and perhaps they've made donations out there, right? So I see the same stuff happen at Balboa Park, downtown. The same yoga, Tai Chi classes, the dog classes, you name it out there. The guys with CrossFit gear that throw it out on the grass and run classes out there. And that's just, maybe they are now starting to force. I have not seen them do it. So I might be a few days late on the news on that, but I haven't seen them do it at Balboa Park yet. But they're doing it on the beaches. So, and nothing against the people who live in those areas. We talked about it earlier. There's an approach to make them both happy. And we've got to do it where it's not such a ginormous class of people. You're obviously running a business. And I'm okay with that. Right? We need to, and I want to improve the economy here in San Diego. So if you're an entrepreneur out doing something at the beach or the park, good for you. That's awesome. I'm glad. I want everyone to get more green in their wallet. And I love people being able to do something out in the grass or on the sand. That's amazing. Those are public lands. There does have to be a little bit of a, hey, let's scale it down a little bit in size. Some of them are just huge, right? And if we want that park or that beach to be open to the public, because it is public land, and it's just overburdened by such a large organization, and the parking and everything, then there has to be something where we come to some kind of agreement with that, and we talked about permitting processes and all that, just doing a better job of streamlining that. I don't even want to charge for it, to be honest. I mean, if you're a business that's out there that's really trying to make it, these fees that go along with that, they're not huge. But for somebody who's making a lot of money on some of these programs, that's not a big deal. But some of them are just little mom and pop things. They're just trying to make it and put some extra cash in their pocket, put their kid through college, whatever. I really want those to be minimal or zero if we can. And just more of a thing to know who's out there on what day and just monitor that. So when there is a complaint, okay, we know that's Bob or Sue that's running that program. We call them, hey, I know you're only supposed to have 40 people out there, and maybe you have 100, maybe we need to give you more days so you can fit that many clients into, your program. So I think there is something where the folks that live there and are being impacted, they'd be happier on that. I know some of those people, and I was telling you earlier, some of them sent me some emails about their perspective on it. I get it. I get it. And I live in OB, I see that stuff go on the beach too. As long as it's not really impacting everybody's ability to use the beach, then and I think we can find that area in the
middle. They giving out permits though?
That's something I just started checking on yesterday. It's the I forget the name of the type of permit you do through the city, but there is one I'm told that you can get. I was trying to find out how much of a hassle it was. I was trying to find somebody, and I haven't yet. That's the reason I don't have an answer for you. I wanted to find somebody who had actually gone through the process to get it, see how slow of a process it is, see how restrictive the rules are with it. But yeah, we'll no matter what it is, we'll make it easier. We'll make it streamlined. We'll listen to everybody. And at the end of the day, as a person who's been elected, I hate calling myself a politician because I don't like. There's very few politicians I like.
It's a greasy name for sure.
I even looked it up in the thesaurus to find something else to call myself. There isn't. It's got politician, and the other words are like governor, assemblyman, mayor. It's just the jobs politicians have. So I don't like that. But so here I'm running for an office. I'm a public servant. But the politicians who are out there now just are not brave enough to talk to the public about the issue, to hear from people who disagree with them. To if a plan is a good plan, it should withstand the light of day, right? Don't keep it a secret. Don't have closed sessions on it. Don't just talk to a few people that who are donors. Talk to everybody about it. And even if you disagree with me, I should be strong enough in my opinion about this great plan I have. And if you poke holes in it, I'll take it back to the drawing board and I'll work it. Because at the end of the day, most of the people that are out there are smarter than the politicians. You're the ones that are out there doing what you do. These guys maybe just read an article on it. Now they're going to pass some legislation on it. They need to talk to you and get your input on it. So this whole problem, getting out and talking to both sides of it, and friendly, peacefully, maybe over beer or coffee, whatever it is, and getting everybody's side on. I think we can come up with something that'll work really well.
And so for the surfers, I have to ask. We've got a lot of questions about some of the pollution coming up from TJ into some of the beaches in San Diego. What can be done, in terms of that?
What a disaster. And that alone should be a reason you fire all the incumbents for not that an individual like the mayor of Coronado, he's a good dude. And he's been trying to be as vocal as he can, but Coronado's not going to get CNN or Fox News out. San Diego can. We're the 8th largest city. So why isn't our mayor hollering about that? Why aren't our board of supervisors doing that? At least to be loud and obnoxious about it.
Yeah.
Go up to Sacramento and jump up and down on the governor's desk and go to DC and demand, stand outside the White House just hollering, hey, let me in here. This is a huge issue.
Yes.
It's really a national issue.
Yeah.
So many of our problems in San Diego are national issues, but we need to be loud about it. It can't be, well, I'm in this party and the governor's in that party and the president's in that party. So if I want to move up and I want to keep, I want to be lieutenant governor someday, I want to be, the attorney general, I want to be a congressman. You got to keep the party happy.
Yeah.
I'm not in a party. I'm an independent.
I love that.
I can't stand that these people do, and they do it in both parties. There's some good, honest people that are politicians in those parties. Not a ton of them, but there's some that would just stand up for what they think is right. But most don't.
Yeah.
Our mayor is not. He's not hollering about this issue. I mean, it's the same with like the border issue and other ones too.
Right.
Why aren't we screaming about that?
Yeah.
But back to the sewer. All right. I'm a surfer too. I love our beaches. I'm military. I know that the SEALs have to continually stop training
Right
in the
there.
water. Yeah. The poor people in IB, that's not even part of San Diego, but so we've been giving so much money down there to upgrade the sewer system. There's a great plan, and I'm not saying I'm married to this plan right now, but of all the plans I've been researching, and I'd love to bring in more experts on it, but right now I'm just a candidate who's not with a party, so they're not really coming to me to talk about it. But the one with that jetty, that 2.5 mile jetty, at $250 million, 240, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of money, I get it. But the amount of money we've been given to Mexico to fix that problem for so long, they just haven't done it.
Yeah.
So you build that. It sends the sewage out far enough and deep enough to where the dilution will solve the problem.
Wow.
I don't want that to be the problem, but we can't make another country, as San Diego, fix that. But that is a problem that instantly solves it. But that's going to take the State Department, Coast Guard, Navy, the president, the governor, IB city, the Coronado City, all of us got to work together. It's not just the mayor of San Diego, but that's the one I'm proposing. I think the mayor of Coronado's on board with that one too. It's a permanent solution to it.
Gotcha.
You can put sensors out there, even you can put sonar on it. You can put radar on there. It actually helps too with the boats that are coming across the border. It makes them go a little further out there, and it gives Coast Guard a chance to monitor them longer than them just coming up and doing a straight shot, up the coast.
Yeah, that goes right into another question. We've seen these viral videos lately of, it's the border crisis, and the more viral moments of it are boats crashing. Right here in Del Mar and La Jolla, and people coming out. So what needs to be done to strengthen the border? What can you do as mayor? Is there any policies that you have in mind, or because it's been insane lately over the last couple months? We've seen all this stuff. How can we make it not get worse?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and obviously, the mayor does not control the border. The governor, there are some arguments legally that a governor can do some things, but just getting back to what I said, this is the 8th largest city. I could get on Fox News, I can get on CNN. Yeah. I can get on MSNBC and talk about this a lot and really bring people's attention to it. So first and foremost, though, is as a police officer and getting our police department involved in the safety of the people, we cannot enforce those federal immigration laws. Yeah, I'm not saying I even want to, but I'm just saying we can't. So people that want SDPD to be down there and enforce it, you can't legally. That is something you can't enforce. But police can still be there to keep you safe. So we used to have a joint task force with Border Patrol and Coast Guard and San Diego Police Department. I think the CHP and the sheriffs were on it too. And we were down there at San Ysidro all the time, working together so that if somebody came across the border who had some bad intent, we don't want them, going into a house near there or taking a car. And that's the minority of the people coming across. But that threat is still there, that people should know that they're going to be kept safe by their police department and by their government, their federal government agencies. So we need to get that back on track. That's been done away with for a long time. Our radio, we don't even talk on the same frequencies with these guys. So I right away, what we need to do is get coordination, communications between Coast Guard, Border Patrol, and San Diego PD. And again, not that we're going to go out there and arrest these people. We're not going to do that. Right. But the point is to be there when we know that boat's on its way, and we hear that. We get enough police there, not to enforce. It's just to be there, make the people feel safe. A good friend of mine was walking her dog in La Jolla one day when one of those viral videos had happened, and just freaking out. All these men are running up the shore.
Yeah.
So none of them did anything, nefarious there, other than violate the laws on immigration, but but they were scared.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to know that there's some police officers there and that there's some vans there with homeless outreach teams, offering them water, offering them services, drive to where some homeless shelters are, just to get them through those neighborhoods safely and without any temptations to do something else along the way to get to that area they want to go, and get them over there. I know that makes a lot of people mad. Well, why are you driving them somewhere? Well, I'm getting them out of a neighborhood where the kids are playing and the ladies are walking their dogs and going for a jog and that sort of thing.
You can't, like, the local government or the local police force can't enforce that. That's a border patrol issue. Like,
there's
the
federal
boats
laws
coming.
that we're not allowed to do, and there's state laws that feds don't do. So that's just one of those things where we're not allowed to enforce. But we can be there to make sure it's safe and also safe for them. A lot of them come across the border in bad shape. Offer them water, medical attention, even just some first aid, but even a ride to, a hospital if they need it. So it's just being there to offer that to them right away. Now, that's just part of the problem. That's the safety of San Diegans when we know a large group is coming across either on land or by sea. The bigger thing is the border. And we have to have a filter system there to stop the fentanyl, stop the cartel guys, stop the human trafficking, and just get to select who the ones are that really should be coming across that are safe and are going to become, good members of our society. And my wife's family is first generation, the Mexican Americans here. Her mom and her sisters and brothers, they all came across. They didn't follow all the rules coming across. They went up into LA. They lived in hiding for a long time. But man, they wanted to assimilate, and they worked 3 jobs. They were trying to make a better life for their family. They were always being threatened because they were hiding from the police all the time. Not a really good life, in a really bad part of LA that they grew up in. My wife can tell you some stories there. The gang violence, all the stuff that happens in those neighborhoods when you don't speak English either. So, I know that there's some great families there that want to raise their kids or make a better life. Good people that just want to become part of America. They want their kid to join the Marine Corps. They want to get involved in Little League. They want their kids to get an education and learn, more languages and all that stuff. So, we need to have a system where we're making sure that it's good people that are coming across, because there's some bad people coming across. There just are. I know. I've got family members that are, in the Fed side of it. I've been down to the border many times. It is not always, these hardworking folks that are just coming here to try to make a better life for their family, which is what America's all about. We all, everybody's ancestors immigrated from somewhere. And that's cool. I love that about America. I'm going to other countries, in Asia and elsewhere, and there's just there's no diversity at all in many of these countries. It's and to have such, you see in Europe some of their immigration problems. Boy, I tell you, we are so blessed to have Mexico to our south. The folks that are in Mexico that are hardworking, family-oriented people.
Absolutely.
I want to have a system where we're bringing over the ones that really want to do the right thing, and they love America. They become the best of us.
No, that's absolutely fact.
So we need something about that, and we can be loud and obnoxious about that too, as a mayor of San Diego. And we don't hear about it. You just don't hear about it at all. The mayor's silent on it, and whichever party you're with, that's cool. Be a Republican, be a Democrat, be an independent, be a socialist. I don't care. But this blind allegiance to these parties, and having these
sad,
having these politicians who are they are more a party member than they are a San Diegan.
A citizen.
So that's like be a good summarization. What seems to be going on is there's like a lack of communication between these groups and politics and these things that run our cities and make them function effectively. How they break down as the police are then not communicating right with some of the politicians, and the politicians aren't communicating with the police, or they have some rift. And on like the national part, like the amount of money in politics is so frustrating. It's insane. We are really into health, and we research these things, and you will see the most clear violations of public health where a company will make massive donations to somebody who then approves something that damages the health of Americans. As far as money in politics, why are you an independent? Why are you choosing to run as an independent? And what do you think about on the national scale? Like, why don't we see more of that?
Right now on the state and national level, It's really hard, I think, to I mean, it's hard enough at the local level to do it as an independent.
Yeah.
They've got a stranglehold, the parties do, on the voting system. You know, you hear about it a lot whenever there's a, you know, when I was younger, it was like Ross Perot, you know, and hearing about those issues he had to go through to get on most ballots. He can't even get on all of them. And right now with Robert Kennedy Jr., you know, you're hearing about how hard it is for him to even get on. I think right now he's looking at like 30 something states.
Yeah, and
the parties have a stranglehold on this.
Rigged. It makes it just seem rigged, and it makes a lot of people, you know, like I've been there before, where you just don't want to get involved or even like look at politics whatsoever.
So you just stay home, you don't vote.
Yeah, and you're just like, well, what? I have the option of these two guys for president. We're gonna have Trump and Biden probably. Like that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And you hear Robert Kennedy say all these amazing. He literally says, "Make America healthy again."
Yep.
All these things we agree. Then you know, like my friend's like, "I hope he wins." He's not gonna win.
Yeah.
He's not going to win, and it's very frustrating. He's not even gonna have a chance. He's not even gonna be in these debates. They just block him out. How can being an independent like sort of be a bit different than just going, oh, Republican or Democrat?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I couldn't do this if I was running for governor or something like that. But being an independent locally, yeah, it can be done. It hasn't been done in San Diego. It's been done in a lot of places. Our DA is an independent, but not too many other people have pulled that off. I am truly an independent, though. You know, this isn't a gamesmanship thing or a tactical thing. And when I joined the Marine Corps, I'm older than you a lot, right? But some of the senior officers were they had been in the Vietnam era, been serving over there, and a big time of political unrest, right? And a lot of the troops felt, you know, that the politicians, you know, Nixon and Johnson, that, you know, is a political war. And if as their leader, if they felt that you kind of had their best interest in mind and you weren't a Republican or a Democrat, you were an independent person, they shared that knowledge with the new officers coming in, and it was shared with me. Hey, regardless of where you're at, it's probably better as a leader of Marines to politically be an independent.
Yeah,
don't sign up with a party. So you can honestly say, hey, I'm not with a party. And however you vote, you vote. But I took it further, and I just always looked at the best person. And also the ideas on both sides. So even with me now, you know, I've got ideas on both sides of the aisle, and I love it. It's like you're not tied to. Well, I have an R next to my name, so I can't like that idea.
Yeah,
even though it makes sense, right? And then same thing. You know, you got a D next to your name. You can't talk about the border while having a filter system. Because the thing is, you might win that election. You might be a city council member or a county board of supervisor, but if you got any future, you want to keep moving on up, then you better not rock that boat. You got to go along with the party's line, and that's what you see them doing right now. They just go along with it. So for me, the parties come with a lot of money and a huge army of door knockers and folks who put signs in, and they'll spend millions on mailers for you. I have none of that. I just have people donating money and getting the word out. You know, just grassroots. It's completely grassroots. But let me tell you this is awesome. In the primary, my sources told me that the other side they had done polling. Polls cost a lot of money. Even polls are like 35 grand. Yeah. You know, crazy. So that's just to know where you're at right then and come up with a strategy on what kind of messaging you want. I don't need to come up with a strategy on my messaging. It's just me.
Yeah.
Your vote. It's Larry. I don't memorize scripts. You know, everyone can tell you. I have a couple topics that I want to hit, and if I know, we're going to talk about yoga on the beach. Okay, well, I'll talk about that a little bit more, or whatever it is. But I'm not changing my opinion based on who you are. You know, it's this is just me. And if you don't want to vote for me, then don't vote for me. I'm not bending over for a different issue, or I'm not changing my ways. I'm not putting my finger in the wind and doing polls for it. But they do polls. They found that I was going to be the one that they were most worried about here coming up in November. So they tried to get me knocked out in the primary, and it was funny how much money I heard they spent. Between $1.5 million and $1.75 million to not have me be in the top two.
Yep.
So they ran a woman who wasn't going to run. They talked her into running as a Republican, so it steals some Republican votes from me. They ran mailers saying that she was a Trump supported person, so all good Republicans should vote for her. She didn't even. Nice lady. She didn't even know that any of this was happening.
Wow. Yeah.
They paid her way in. They got her signatures just to have a Republican on the ticket there, so that Republicans could vote for her. And sadly, a lot of people just fell for that. Oh, they see the R or they see the D, and they just go down and mark, as they're being told by their party. And that's the thing I try to get out of people's, mind. Like, look, let's break this grip of these people. Hey, go ahead and do it at the federal level, state, or whatever. But we're talking potholes. We're talking homeless people on the street. This is not a party thing.
No.
The things I'm talking about, 95% of us agree on. If anything, we disagree maybe on the implementation of it, but we all agree, like, why should humans be sleeping on the sidewalks?
Right.
Why are we letting crime go unpunished? Why are we seeing an increase in crime? Why aren't we doing more about that? Why are we seeing people drown in floods because we kept taking money from our stormwater and putting it on pet projects that politicians, why are we seeing so much corruption with all these real estate deals, and that people are still going to vote for a guy who has a D next to his name because, well, I'm a Democrat. That's cool. Be a Democrat. But let's all get real here on what really affects San Diego. So here I am as an independent. I told you they spend all that money. We spent like $7,500, wow. and I made it in. So
I love it.
That's the kind of thing. It's really just people getting a chance to hear me, knowing that I'm real. If you disagree with me, that's cool. We'll talk. And I'm not afraid of talking about our position. We don't have to argue. We don't got to yell. Yeah. And I've got people who very far ends of the spectrum on both sides that I talk to, and I have had. I've had literally these people that were devout communists be on my side. I had people that are, very far right folks that are on board and helping out. So it really is it's a grassroots thing, and it's just talking about the stuff we all want fixed. It's not party stuff. Yeah,
I love that. So last question I got to ask: you might be the most jacked mayor in the United States, so you're in really good shape. What do you do just on a personal level, like for your health?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, you watch pro wrestling and you want to you just lift weights all the time, right? Yep. But then you get ready to go in the Marine Corps, and they talked me into being an officer, so I had to do really well on the there were fewer seats than there were people trying to be an officer, so you're out there like trying out for the job before you even went in.
Yeah.
So started running. And I remember the first time I went out and. I think I got to the halfway mark on the 3 mile, and I had to stop and stop, not throw up, because I was just lifting all the time, So then it's like, okay, hey, I got to do more than just lift. So then it's working and running. So it's running and lifting. But then as you get older, especially once the internet came out, you could start seeing more stuff about just better fitness and nutrition. And when I started realizing, 85% of fitness is what you're putting in your mouth. That was a big part of it too. And the chemicals and the plastic and all these things. You all probably know a lot more about it than me. But just changing it all to just a healthy lifestyle, not being not worrying about the way you look. It's just more being about longevity and being injury free and being there for your kids and your grandkids and hopefully your great grandkids. I just try to eat right. I try to do all those movements the older guys do, like me now. I'm over 50 now, so it's just those mobility things.
Okay.
To work your all the smaller muscles. I'm doing a lot of that. One-footed, balance it on the bossy ball to make sure so when I'm older and I fall down, I don't break my knee. It's like it just twisted a little bit.
No, I don't think you're gonna be looking like Biden when you're his age.
I hope not.
I don't think so. That's amazing, man. I want to see more of that. Healthy politicians, like, oh my God, I know you don't want to be called a politician, but it's like some of them, it's just like the most unhealthy people ever. And I'm just like, what is going on? With the obesity epidemic in our country and so many of the health issues we have, it's like, well, if we just keep on electing unhealthy leaders, it's not really a good example for people.
Yeah, we need more boots on the ground like you that are getting to the ground level and actually talking to people and hearing them out and hearing different sides and being open to everything.
I think it's just knowing that you work for the people. And that's what I always say. I want to be your employee. And I always tell people when I come to these meetings, this is my my interview chance with my boss. And that's why I view it is I work for you. So the whole hiding out at the top of City Hall and being afraid to talk to people and just talking to people who write you big checks, total opposite of that. We want to get rid of we still got an office, but I'll let the interns have my office, and I'm going to have a little motorhome office, and Zoom our meetings in there and just driving around and seeing everybody all the time and getting flagged down. Maybe we'll put a wrap on it. It says the mayor mobile or something, it's like, hey, stop, that person's waving at, hey, what's your problem? And I whether you like Ed Koch or not in New York, cool thing about him was he would just have his driver just stop in different neighborhoods and go up to that hot dog van. Hey man, how am I doing? He'd always how am I doing?
That's cool.
I like that.
And they'd have a camera with him once in a while. And the guy, you suck.
He's
He's like, okay, well, how do I suck? What do we need to do better? Don't be afraid of those negative answers. Like, hear them out. And, that's what I want to do, though. I just want to be everybody's employee.
I love that. Any last questions, Austin?
No, not at all, dude. I mean, in the health space, we deal with the same thing with the left and the right. And we just try to get people to think independently and to think natural. And once again, boots on the ground. You try something out yourself, see how it works for you, instead of listening to, this side or oh my God, this study.
They
So
definitely
we
want
hear
to
you.
keep us at each other's throats.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a quick story. I go in and talk to everybody, right? And most of the time, I don't even know, right? I mean, I didn't even ask you guys your political leanings or anything, right? I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? We all want to see our infrastructure fixed, and we all want to see our
No,
economy doing better,
I
right?
have to
Yeah,
say,
who
like,
cares?
like Austin's like, oh, we got this guy running for mayor, and like we've done different interviews with people who are like, oh, you need to cut this out, you need to do this, and like you just came in here and you're like, all right, let's rock,
Yeah.
like, no weird like, oh, do not ask about this, like, no, it was just like, amazing,
It's just dudes talking. That's it.
Yeah.
So, but back to this, once in a while though, I go to a group that is, I know they're far more left or that they're far more right.
Yeah.
Usually more cowboy hats.
Yeah.
But I will go talk to that guy. Say the same thing. Say the exact same thing to both groups. Answer the question the same way. I don't care. I'm not. I would rather lose and be myself than have to fudge something through to win. I don't want that. So. Well, I say the same thing, but this is how far apart they have us and that we don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
Is that the guys on the right, they've told me so many times, hey man, it's so good to have a conservative like you pretending to be an independent so you could fool those Democrats into voting for you. And I swear to God, I hear the same thing from the left. Man, it's so good to have a progressive liberal like you who's pretending to be
So funny.
and an independent so you can get those Republicans to vote for you. And I'm saying the exact same thing.
funny.
These guys don't even talk.
Yeah.
Everybody's at each other's throats so much they don't even have a beer together and just share some ideas to realize this 95% of stuff that we're trying to fix here in San Diego, it's so fixable.
Yeah.
And we can make it happen and they all will agree on it. And man, I really want it to be more than just we fix these things, but bring San Diego back to the spirit of San Diego. We're all here for a reason. I mean, San Diego has that vibe that we all moved here for, originally. So I think we can bring that back. It's gonna be cool.
Absolutely. Stoked.
I know who I'm voting for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Guys, get out there and vote. Seriously, when you vote in local politics, it actually makes an impact on your life. Like, yes, for sure, go vote for president, if you want. But like, what actually makes an impact on your day to day is local politics. This shit is important. Trust me, if you're a bit younger now, okay, I was like, when I was younger, like, oh, it doesn't make that big of a deal. Trust me, I'm buying a house right now in the San Diego area. You're looking at neighborhoods. You're looking at what is going on with your tax money. It is important. Get out there and vote. Stay healthy. We appreciate you.
Yeah, where do they
Peace.
find you at?
LarryTurnerForMayor.com. Please look on there, and all the social media links are on there too. But LT and then the number 4 SD, those 5 symbols.
Sweet.
LT4 SD is on our Instagram. You can see videos of me talking about a ton of issues, so you can see kind of what my thoughts are, a little more detail on some of the things.
Sweet. Guys, go follow him. Tell him to ban Red 40.
Let's go. Pleasure, man.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a pleasure, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so much. That was fun.